Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Without a doubt, the most common disease in politics is that of being massively out of touch, and its most common cause is spending too much time in a political echo chamber. It stands to reason. If every single person you talk to on a daily basis mostly agrees with you, it becomes very difficult to comprehend that people in general society think that you're a complete whack job. And this is what has befallen the woke left in Canada. They do not interact with people who disagree with them. In fact, if you disagree with them, they label you as a fringe bigot and block you out of their lives. And then they end up looking at the polling and wondering why so many Canadians are turning against the progressive left. Obviously, this has been happening all over the West these days. The left becomes extremely politically arrogant, gets very aggressive, passing left wing policy, and then wonders why all of society rejects them because all of my friends agree with what I say. Well, maybe it's because you only ever talk to your friends. So, in today's video, I want to talk about this video that Steve Boots put up. He is a woke left wing Canadian video creator who is defending the concept of echo chambers. Yes, the video might be labeled echo chambers question mark or just not listening to jerks question mark. Well, it's an echo chamber. He is describing an echo chamber in this video, and he doesn't know it because he himself is so out of touch.
I, like many others, have migrated from Twitter to Blue Sky, and it is a much more positive place. It's got a much more aggressive set of moderation tools and a much more aggressive culture when it comes to things like blocking and muting.
So just remember that in the first 10 seconds, he is already praising the app Blue Sky, which is like a lefty alternative to Twitter, because it has aggressive moderation tools and it has aggressive blocking and muting features. Now, listen to him make the case for why Blue Sky is totally not an echo chamber.
And a lot of that has to do with the nature of the platform. Like on Twitter, you'd often quote tweet somebody you wanted to dunk on. And on Blue Sky, you can too, but if you quote tweet somebody, they can just detach their tweet from yours. And while that seems like a very minor change, it's created a very different culture on the site. Having different moderation tools and having tools to give people the ways to protect themselves makes a huge difference. Like we've all seen Twitter pile-ons in the past, and that seems to not work on Blue Sky. But it's not all sunshine and roses.
What he's describing here by saying, well, there are often pile-ons on Twitter, and I know what he's talking about. Like you say something, and there's like 100 people quote tweeting you and attacking you and whatnot, and you can even just mute your own post so you don't get any notifications from it if you don't want. But he's saying that because people don't ever actually hear massive criticism on Blue Sky, that makes the platform more positive and good. I would disagree. That sounds like you never really hear that you're way off base with specific ideas you have. You're only ever reinforced that whatever you believe is at least somewhat normal because you never get attacked for it. But I'll let him keep making his case.
Over in the world of blue skies. At least the Globe and Mail doesn't think so. They want you to worry. They want you deeply concerned about the echo chamber that's emerging. You see, they ran this op-ed from Phoebe Maltz-Bovey, who suggests
if you are having someone from the Globe and Mail say that you are becoming out of touch because the platform you are on is an echo chamber, you know you're in an echo chamber. When someone from the Globe and Mail will tell you that, that's a good wake-up call that you probably shouldn't be trying to sequester yourself away from the general public.
That the problem with Blue Sky is that it won't broaden our horizons, that it's going to create an echo chamber. And it appears that this author is deeply offended that they were added to a problematic people starter pack. Can't imagine why anybody would find this person problematic. And some of the stuff is really just telling on themselves.
I've actually seen this video already, and I read that text on screen. There was nothing there that indicated why she would be considered problematic. And isn't that kind of telling that Blue Sky has a filtration system where you can be labeled a problematic account preemptively? People don't get to decide that for themselves. The platform itself will tell you that you're problematic. And there are it recommends who you should follow. That's standard. Social media platforms tend to recommend people to you that you might be interested in. The difference on Blue Sky is it tends to recommend politically correct people only.
Like, quote, the account of a British barrister who I take it has the bad views on gender identity has been flagged with an intolerance tag for discrimination against protected groups. Okay, so he was discriminating against protected groups and your concern is that he was stopped? Like, what's the problem with muting transphobes? Why should that person's terrible views be shared? Why should I have to listen to them? But this
Why are we flagging them? And here's where like Steve Boots is not only massively out of touch, but massively politically arrogant. He just assumes that if someone's been labeled as such, that means it's true. Of course that's true. They've been labeled a transphobe, ergo we should be trying to mute this person and not let them speak. Has he ever thought of the fact that the vast majority of people don't think of the person that he is taking part in smearing is not actually transphobic or wrong in their views, that they in fact are correct, that maybe boys are boys and girls are girls? It's never crossed Steve Boots' mind because he's living in a bubble.
This really isn't about policing bad views. There are people on Blue Sky with bad views already. That's not what's getting banned. It's people with hurtful views, people with dangerous views.
Sorry, but what's the difference between bad views and dangerous views? I can admit that obviously if somebody is calling for the deaths of people, that's a dangerous view, but that's already against the law. But where does the line get drawn between bad views and dangerous views? I guarantee you the difference in his mind between bad views and dangerous views is people that he mostly agrees with, but thinks they're a little too aggressive on certain issues. And dangerous views are like conservatives.
People with views that put other people's lives and safety at risk. Those aren't acceptable. It's called Popper's paradox of tolerance. If you tolerate the intolerant, then tolerance doesn't really exist. In order for
That's left-wing claptrap nonsense. That, well, if you tolerate someone who's intolerant, that means that we are just letting intolerance flourish. No, this is the whole punch a Nazi type stuff. Oh, there is a Nazi over there? Well, he's intolerant of other people. So we must physically aggress him because of his disgusting views. No, that is not how actual tolerance works. You only do not tolerate people who violate other people's rights or call for violence. If a Nazi's doing that, yeah, they should be punished. But Steve Boots considers danger, like, again, the idea that you say that men are men and women are women and that there is no gender spectrum that people can be on.
tolerant spaces to function, we cannot tolerate intolerance. That's the one thing. It means getting the most hurtful, vile people out of there. Like, Andrew Tate didn't even last a day on Blue Sky, and that's for the better.
Remember, he's saying that bad people are not being kicked off. It's only dangerous people. And I would consider Andrew Tate a pretty awful human being. I think he probably is guilty of being a human trafficker. Let's see where that trial goes. But he's literally celebrating people being immediately booted off at the same time that he is then saying, well, people aren't just being kicked off for being bad, it's for being dangerous. Well, what does dangerous mean? Well, being kind of a jerk like Andrew Tate is. Like, minus all of the potential criminal things, but that hasn't been actually adjudicated properly yet. And I don't think that Steve Boots is even exactly thinking about those things. I think he's probably thinking that Andrew Tate is like, sexist and transphobic and anti Semitic, and he is anti Semitic. But that's what he wants kicked off. He doesn't want you to have like bad opinions, even though there was literally a scandal a day or two ago where Blue Sky was full of people celebrating that CEO's death from global health. He was assassinated and they were celebrating it. That's not bad. That's not dangerous in the eyes of Steve Boots. That's normal political discourse because he agrees with it.
You see, kicking people out of there isn't about creating an echo chamber. I get accused of the same thing every time I block or mute people on my page or whatever it may be. But it's not really about that. It's creating a community and cultivating it. You see,
guys, if we change the name echo chamber to community, that means it's a good thing now. He's not living in an echo chamber. He's just living in a community that nobody but people he mostly agrees with can be in. See, I slightly disagree with that person. That means we have a diversity of thought. There are tons of people I vehemently disagree with on Twitter X. And that's a good thing. I push back on people I disagree with. I'm not one of these guys who thinks that, well, don't disagree with people. That's intolerant. Disagree with people as aggressively as you want. But the idea that somehow that it's just a community. It's not echo chamber when only certain people can speak is very telling about his perspective. Again, it's called being massively out of touch.
Blue Sky is a community. Social media is a community. My comment section is a community. It's all a community, and communities need community standards. Like, I talked to my class.
By the way, too, Steve Boots does not consider there to be a difference between an online platform and real life. I guarantee he considers society a community where we should have censorship and moderation to prevent the dangerous people from speaking.
Community. It's all a community, and communities need community standards. Like, I talk to my classes sometimes about rules versus community standards. What are the expectations we have as a member of our community? I don't mean what the law forces you to do. I'm talking about the actual standards we have for how we talk to one another, how we treat one another, how we act towards one another. Because as a society, those have heavily eroded, and it's a serious issue. So when people want
Sorry, how is he even drawing a comparison between community standards and rules? Rules are stuff you have to do. Community standards are just how you have to treat people. But then he's saying that the community standards that he wants and that he approves of in Blue Sky removes people and kicks them out because they aren't doing certain things or they're doing things that they're not supposed to do. This is wacky.
to create a new community with intentional community standards where people are expected to uphold a certain standard of behavior and respect for everybody, and if they don't, they're sent packing, there's a breathless panic about it. Out of curiosity, where did the same echo chamber panics get raised about Truth Social or Rumble? Or are we just going to freak out when the echo chamber skews a little bit to the left?
A little bit to the left. Blue Sky is very left. There are people who are getting kicked off for not being sufficiently left on certain issues. They had to come back to Twitter after they said, I'm leaving Twitter forever to places with bluer skies. And then they were quickly kicked off because they said something that was against lefty orthodoxy. Rumble and Truth Social and places like Parler and, Gab and BitChute, yes, they are more conservative, but those were set up back when there was censorship on places like Twitter and YouTube. They are not echo chambers in the same way that Blue Sky is. Yes, you will mostly only be talking to conservative people, but that isn't something that was like a predestined thing that the platform wanted. That was just because that was the people migrating over. The thing is, if you are conservative on Blue Sky, there's a very good chance you're going to be getting kicked out unless you say the most milquetoast things on the planet. That's the thing. This is where people like Steve Boots are so obviously dishonest. He knows he's lying. Imagine that this guy used to be a school teacher with this amount of illogic. You really are comparing Rumble and Truth Social, where anyone can get an account. You can be a lefty on those places and talk all day long and no one's going to kick you off. But if you go onto Blue Sky and get kicked off, just because those two tend to be a little bit echo chambery, and I would still say that Rumble is kind of an echo chamber. Places like BitChute and Truth Social are, but it's not baked into the design. It's just based on who's selected to be on those platforms.
But it's not even really an echo chamber. You are welcome to participate even if you disagree, but you can't disagree with somebody's fundamental right to exist. You can't.
What does he mean by that, though? That's him saying that if you deny gender theory, you are denying someone's right to exist, ergo you're going to get kicked off. It's word games with the left constantly, and they think that this is clever. Steve thinks he's being very clever with how he is presenting this. The average person listening to him thinks this guy is psychotic, thinks that this person is a cry bully authoritarian, which he absolutely is. And then he will wonder why parties like the NDP get absolutely wrecked in the Saskatchewan provincial election. He assumed that it could happen, but I think he was legitimately taken off guard with how much the Saskatchewan party won by, because it's a party that is not the woke left. Yes, the NDP got back in British Columbia, but barely against an upstart party with way less money. Yes, Blaine Higgs lost in New Brunswick. That had way more to do with a poorly run campaign than people rejecting his social conservative policies. Those were popular to the point that Susan Holt had to keep pretending that she didn't have the socially progressive opinions that she does.
Disagree with somebody's right to live safely and not be harassed. What's the problem with that? But more than that, if a collective of people decide to create a space where your opinions aren't welcome because they are harmful and dangerous, the problem isn't the space. The problem is you and your opinions. You want to join in? Follow the rules. It's not hard.
It's not hard. Just be left wing. Just be an out of touch lefty. Just be a leech on society. Just be the person who demands everything from everybody else and never actually acts like an adult. Just be a child all the time. Just demand everything. And if you don't agree with us, you have to follow those demands or you're kicked out. What is this? It's he's rewarding special categories of people. And what he was alluding to there about harassment was Karima Said going to Rachel Gilmore in a public space and videoing her asking her questions. That was considered harassment that would have been worthy of kicking Kareem Said off Blue Sky.
They're very easy to follow. You don't accidentally do transphobia. So the real question you have to ask here is, why do the most obnoxious people in the world feel entitled to our attention? As soon as there's a space where they don't get it,
people aren't entitled to your people don't feel entitled to your attention. They're mocking you for going and putting yourself in an echo chamber. That's what's happening.
They're offended. As soon as the people move away from them and they no longer hold the control of the attention economy, they throw a tantrum because they aren't driving the bus anymore. They can't own libs. Frankly, I think it's for the best. So if you need me, I'll be over on Blue Sky instead of wandering amongst the ghosts and Nazis on Twitter.
Oh, the ghosts and Nazis on Twitter. Oh yeah, everyone on Twitter's a Nazi. Everyone who I disagree with is just they're just like a bigot and extremist. Who could guess why these people are losing elections? Who could guess why Donald Trump was elected in the U.S. or why Pierre Poilievre is almost guaranteed to become the next prime minister of Canada? It's almost like people got tired of people who talk to them like, oh, well, maybe you just don't have, maybe if you're a little less transphobic, you can be on this site. Maybe if you play along with the other kids, you can be on this site. This is why people don't like Chrystia Freeland or Jenna Suds or Justin Trudeau or Mark Garrettson. Talking down to people like this, maybe if you were just not such a bigot, you could interact with, you could be on our platform, but you can't. You think you're entitled to my attention. Nobody thinks they're entitled to his attention. What? Where did that come from? It's like actually insane. But whatever. Why doesn't he go on to a more lefty social media, like a lefty, video platform? There's transphobia all over YouTube. Why doesn't he take himself off of YouTube? Because people are profiting off of transphobia. And why doesn't he go to a different platform? It's almost like he actually does want to interact with a massive amount of people, but because YouTube doesn't require him to interact with people, he likes it. As soon as you actually have to see posts from other people that you dislike, that's when it becomes problematic. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. This is just a really basic video wanting to talk about what Steve Boots was up to. I know some people tell me, well, don't talk about him because it gives him attention. It's not good attention. It's not like his channel's going to start growing because of any of this. He's been spamming out videos every day. I know I put up a video every day or put up 2 videos a day. The guy puts up 3 videos in a day and then also uploads 3 or 4 YouTube shorts. So you'll go on to his Social Blade account, because I like to keep tabs on other people's channels. It interests me. And he has 15,000 views in a day, but his actual standalone videos only have a few thousand views. And so he's just spamming out shorts in order to try and gain viewership since he's, stopped teaching and becoming an influencer. I don't think it's exactly a good idea. So if I was ever to give Steve Boots advice, have a separate channel for shorts. Putting shorts on the main channel means that you're going to have an audience who only wants to watch shorts, and then another audience who only wants the long form content. And both those audiences are not going to watch the other's content, which means that you're going to have very bad click-through rates and very bad retention. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. See you around.